Welcome into another video on this channel, and today we will be further exploring Terraform ecosystem, and specifically we will talk about data blocks and how they can help us in our day-to-day Terraform work. So we will hop into AWS Management Console and then into our Terraform code and see how they work. All right, so we are in the Visual Studio Code, and as you can see, it's a very bare-bone project with only a provider configured for AWS. So let's do Terraform init at the beginning so we can initialize our state. And now let's go to Management Console. So let's say I would navigate to VPC in our account. Each AWS account by default comes with some default resources which are being spin up with the account. Among many of those resources, there is a VPC and stuff related to that, like Internet Gateway, NAT Gateway, subnets, route tables, and so on. So let's right now say we have this very basic Terraform project, and we have our default VPC that is not covered through Terraform. It wasn't created by Terraform, and it wasn't imported. But we would like to spin up an EC2 instance in this VPC. So what we can do, here data blocks come to a little bit of a rescue. If we would go to Terraform registry documentation, I already opened that for AWS provider. If we would be able to navigate down to the VPC, so we have our resources block. So those are all of the resources that can be created and configured, but there are also data sources. And in data sources, let's say, navigate to AWS VPC. And we can see that it's a very simple thing. We can use this data AWS, type its name, and pass the ID. So let's do that and see what informations we will have access to. If I will navigate here, and I will create a very simple data TF and pass it here, and we will go to our VPCs and pass just the ID here. Okay, and let's change it to maybe default, and let's do Terraform apply. You will see that there are no configuration changes, but the data AWS VPC was read. And let's go to the Terraform console and see what this data block holds for us. If I will go to data, AWS, VPC, .default, I will see that I have some informations. I have the ARN, I have the CIDR block, I have the mine route table, I have the VPC ID itself. So without importing and without creating those resources through Terraform, we have some data already here. So let's say we would also like to have subnets, so we can deploy, let's say, an EC2 in the future in the particular subnet. We can switch the data block to AWS subnets. We will take that, we will paste it here, and you can see here we are using something different. We are using a filter. So we can pass, let's say, some kind of a name on a subnet. We will reference the VPC ID, and we will look for a specific value. If I would go to the management console and go to subnets, you can see they are all always tied to a VPC. So we are doing a filter on that, and you can do it on many other also fields here. So let's go with this, and actually here we will do a reference to our previous data block. So let's do data AWS VPC .default.id, because here in the console we saw that this ID which we put it here is also already part of the data block. So let's do Terraform apply one more time. No configuration changes, but something will be read. Data AWS subnets was read. Okay, so let's go to the console and let's look for data AWS subnets.example. And we can see we have a list of 6 subnets. So D9061B, D9061B, 884F64, 884F64. So we were able to take the data block and do a filter and find in our AWS account all of the subnets that are matched to specific VPC ID. So now we have subnets, and now we would be able, let's say, to spin up our EC2 instance. But data blocks are also used in many other resources. Let's say we will navigate to EC2. And if I would navigate to EC2 and scroll down to the data sources, we can see that, let's say, I can find all AWS AZs in a specific region in our account that we can use for, let's say, spin up an EC2. We can also use AWS AMI and use all of those filters. As you can see, we used on the subnets, we used the VPC ID, but now we can do many filters, compose them together to find our specific AMI. As you know, if you want to launch an EC2 through Terraform, we always need an AMI ID. And this is one of the possible solutions that we can actually get this AMI ID without navigating to Management Console and looking for that always. We can have a data block that will fetch a proper AMI for us. So that's a very brief introduction to data blocks. You can see that it's quite useful, and for sure there can be many things that you will be using regarding data sources and data blocks in Terraform. So that will be all for today. Hope you learned something new here, and of course, see you in another video.